Hey, what's up? So, I have a question for you. Are you a creator? Do you create anything online? And even if you are not, you probably have some sort of a Facebook profile or an Instagram profile, and you probably have some like followers on it. And what you might think is, hey, those are your people. You can reach out to them anytime you want. It's just a matter of creating a post, right? It's just a matter of tweeting something, right? And the reality is that most of the audience you have built, most of your friends, most of your YouTube subscribers, whatever the context is for you, most of that are not yours. Well, by that I mean that if you actually put something out on Facebook or if you put something on YouTube, that does not mean that people who are actually subscribed to you get to see it. It is totally up to the decision of the algorithm, the gods of the algorithm. Be it Facebook, be it YouTube, they are all run by certain algorithms. And the algorithms are no longer just like showing your posts in chronological order. What they're doing instead is they are prioritizing, they are sort of analyzing people's behavior and showing them content that would be most likely to be watched. Now, the discussion about the algorithm is a whole separate video because then we'll have to talk about just because I like a baby video or a cat video, does that mean I want to see more cat videos? Does that mean that? But that's a separate discussion. In this video, what I'm going to talk about is the audience that you own, you do not own if you have it on social media. The phrase building on borrowed land is used a lot. So you might be building your audience, your creator empire on borrowed land. And this is a lesson that I have been taking seriously only recently. I've had a podcast for a number of years now, 3 years plus, and I've always had it on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. But I realized that your audience is not available to you all the time. If I put a episode out today on, let's say, podcast, and it distributes to various podcast channels, especially if it's something like Spotify, which is regulated, then not everyone actually sees my podcast. Even people who have subscribed to me. And it's certainly not true on YouTube, where the space is so much more saturated. If something happens to Facebook or YouTube, or they change their policies, then your whole empire, your whole audience, your friends are lost. And that's why the importance of email list comes out. An email list is just a list of emails which you can have on your separate software. And I'm going to talk about software in a bit, but it's essentially your own list that you own and control. It's 100% in your control. You decide what happens with that list. So if someone in your email list decides to unsubscribe, at least you know that they have unsubscribed. It's completely in your control. I've only started building my list just a few months ago, and I've built up to like hundreds of people because I've already had some audiences here and there and some ads, and I'll talk about that also a bit later. But only a few hundred people, and I can already see that the reception that I have on the email list is much bigger than the reception I have on platforms that I've building on for years. Because you never know when you will be on the side of the algorithm or you will not be on the side of the algorithm. Having said that, this is not to say that I don't like social media. I think I'm a big fan, and the ability to connect to people is quite good. But that must come with an understanding of the shortcomings of social media, and it must come with the understanding that it's not great land to build like your audience on, but more importantly perhaps your business on, especially if you want to do this for a living, but let alone a business. It's just a better way to communicate when you reach someone's inbox. So an inbox is a very personal space. Just think about this. If you had to open your inbox and someone were to look over you, would you actually like that? Well, you would probably be like, hey, stop looking at this. This is a bit of a privacy invasion. That's what most of us would feel. That space on the inbox is a much more sacred space. Also, when you are reaching out to someone on email, the assumption is that you've taken permission to reach out on email. And that gives us another layer of engagement, that your audience is sort of wanting you to show up, not just randomly expecting you to show up. And then of course, they are always welcome to unsubscribe if they want, right? So there's a much more of a serious relationship you have with your audience if you have an email list. There's a book called Launch, which I talked about in one of the marketing books videos I did earlier. And in it, the book is filled with stories about how people use their email list to generate an entire business, like to start, to launch an entire business. And it's so not possible with social media. So I think there's some like data and some evidence from marketers and online business owners that if you have an engaged email list, that's your number one asset, and it's the most engaged asset that you will have and the most highest converting asset that you will have. So if you do not have an email list, whether you want it for a business or not, even if it's just your own creative expression, it's also a very private way to start creating. So if you're scared of like putting yourself like this out on YouTube or on socials, then email list can be a nice private way to get started, and it can be a nice avenue for you to share things without worrying about not knowing where that will go and having that public viral impact. You're much more in control of your who sees your content and your viewership. So I highly recommend starting an email list. It also just creating things. It's not about showing off your own knowledge, but it's also about getting knowledge. I've noticed that the more I have created these videos, the more I have blogged and created a podcast and now creating these videos, the more I actually tend to look out for things and I tend to understand them better because I know I'll be talking to you about them. It forces my attention to churn it out a bit more because I know I'm going to be presenting it. It's another way of saying teaching is the best form of learning. And so it's not just about you have a lot of content to give away. You can just simply start creating, and then that will lead to your focus creating more content automatically. It will get your creative juices flowing. So I highly recommend an email list. So now the question is, how do you start an email list? And that actually is more simple than you think. There are various number of software and I've tried out almost all of them. Generally, email software do tend to be a bit more expensive, but most of them would have a free tier as well. So right now I'm using a software called ConvertKit. And I do pay for it. I pay for it because I use some of its automations. So what happens is if you go ahead and sign up on my website, then what you will be sent is a series of induction emails that will introduce you to my world and give just like free value out there. So it will tell you that, hey, I have this podcast and here are some of the popular episodes of my podcast. You may benefit from it. It will give you a free workbook, an emotional intelligence workbook. It will give you a free scorecard assessment. And so it will give you a lot of things. There'll be like a series of induction emails. It will also make you an offer at the end about a mindfulness course I run, and you're totally welcome to ignore it if you want. And then it will put you in a sequence of my own newsletter. So you don't immediately get access to my newsletter, but once you complete that induction sequence, then you're put into the newsletter category. And then I send you weekly emails based on what I'm learning, what I'm thinking about psychology, emotional intelligence, technology, productivity, all of these fun things that you see on this channel. But it's much more current, and I might not even post some things out there, but I may put it on the email list just because I think it's a bit more of an intimate connection I have with the audience here. So I use a software called ConvertKit. There is another popular software called Substack, which I recommend. I started out with MailChimp and there were just like 5 or 10 people in the beginning. I never promoted it, but I always had it at the back of my toolkit. So MailChimp tends to be quite popular. All of these are good. Really, the software, honestly, it's the least of my concerns. I would say that ConvertKit does get a bit expensive with all of these automation features, but the free tier of it accommodates up to 1,000 subscribers, which is quite good. There is a new software I've been playing with called System.io, and it's more of an all-in-one sort of suite. So I can have my courses there, I can have my podcast there, I can have some landing pages there. And so finally, I'll talk about the landing pages because that seems like a nice place to conclude, which is how do you grow your audience? It's probably not the biggest challenge for you to just start an email list, but the real question is how do you grow it? How do you actually have people wanting you to show up in their inboxes? And there are many answers to this, and I suppose the bigger, larger picture answer is just provide value and let people know that it exists, and then it's up to people. But there are more tactical and strategic things that you could do to also get people to enroll. I for one had like 300 people sign up in one day. And why did that happen? And the value that I gave out, which is a common tactic, by the way, is you give out something for free in exchange of people's email addresses. So what you say is, this is called a lead magnet, by the way, jargon. What you do is create like a small PDF. So I have this instant emotional intelligence workbook, which comes from one of my popular podcast episodes, and I've just translated into an actionable workbook. So I know it's well received. I know people benefit from it. I know many people have gone through that episode and have found immense value from it. So it's kind of field tested. And so created that workbook, which ended up being like 13 pages long, and I think it's pretty good. I've received great comments. And what you do is then offer it out on your Facebook, on your Instagrams, TikTok, wherever you are, offer it out for free and ask people to sign up for free. Now, bonus points, you could boost it with ads, and that's why ads are meant for businesses to get contact information. That's one time where Facebook and Instagram actually allow you to add links to your post. Well, Facebook still does, but Instagram does not. But it also allows you to create a form where you could capture emails right then and there, or you could send them to your own page, which is called a landing page, and that's where people can fill in their contact details. It's super quick, and then they get what you delivered, and that's it. They're on your email list. Congratulations. Of course, now if you want to go to the next step, you can set up some automations, and that depends on if your software allows for it. I like people to have something coming from me, like an induction series of emails. But you don't have to. That's not beginning. I didn't have it when I started. So that's my suggestion. So if you're a creator of any kind, remember, your audience is not yours if you are on any other social media, on Instagram, on YouTube. And if you want your audience to be yours and have that peace of mind that, whatever happens to the algorithm, you have this source which is yours, then you should start an email list. If you don't care about business, if you don't care about this creator world kind of thingy, even then, it's great for your creativity. The discipline for me of writing something every week has made me a better thinker, has made me better at noticing things, and has made me a more aware citizen. I look out for things. I look out for happening. I look out for learnings. And when I find something that's worth sharing, I notice it more. I grapple with it. I try to see how it will add value to you all who are on my email list. And so all of this only happens when I know I have that weekly newsletter to write. If there's no newsletter, there's no outlet for communication, then there is less of engagement with life itself. And so highly recommend you start an email list. Bye.